Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Frank Fear, your co-host of Mountaineer Locker Room, and I have my good colleague Daryl Prue with me. Mickey's under the weather and can't be with us this evening. Hope you get better soon, Mickey. Greg is on the road and is traveling to where he can get his hands on a computer. He'll be with us very soon. But we appreciate you taking the time to be with us today, and look forward to talking with you. It's going to be a basketball show tonight. Yeah, things are going on in football, but we've got to focus on what the country is focusing on. And as we all know, it's March Madness. Conference tournaments got most of them were done last week, and we're moving into the tournament. Big upset last night. Well, was it an upset? Really, Colorado State. It wasn't an upset, Daryl. They just cleaned their clocks. University of Virginia got really lambasted, and I see that Greg is here. Good to see you, Greg.
Made it right on time.
The pizza was getting cold, so we decided to start eating. So good to see you. You're in Ohio as we speak.
I'm in Ohio right now. Yeah, I just got back from Pittsburgh. I got up there and got in a mess of traffic, and that's why I was running late.
Oh, no worries. I was just mentioning that Mickey can't be with us tonight. Under the weather, unfortunately. He's had a patch of bad health over the last couple of weeks, and we hope he'll be with us, be back with us very, very soon. Yep. Great to have Daryl with us. So it's the three of us, nice and cozy. So how was your week, and how are you doing? And you must be really excited with all the basketball going on.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. I've been excited. The tournament getting started. That's always the best time, you know. And I like you said, you mentioned there earlier. I heard that you was thinking about whether or not I'm fixing my background here while I'm talking. Last night was an upset, and I'll be honest with you. I've watched Virginia several times, and I was just shocked that they were even in the tournament, and to be honest. So I don't know if it was an upset or not. I just don't think they're a very good team. And, you know, he has always coached, really focused on the defensive side of things. But in the past, he's had teams that could score. This team he has now, they can't score. They're a pretty good defensive team, but, you know, they can't score points. And last night, my gosh, they were atrocious. I mean, they were awful. And I don't view that as really an upset. I just think it's a pretty bad team in Virginia, and I'm not so sure they deserve to even be in the tournament. But heck yeah, man, it's the best time of year for me. I love this time of year. A lot going on.
Must be the same for you, Daryl.
Yeah, I mean, like this is that part of the year, you know what I mean? Like you would think because teams in the lower levels, they've been together maybe 3-4 years, well coached. You know, some of them coaches the mid majors are very good coaches. They run a lot of plays. They make you play defense, and they say defense win championships, but you got to score. You know what I mean? So you got to score some points. If you can't score, defense, nobody's doing it.
Yeah. Well, you can see I'm gonna honk my own horn here. As Greg knows, I've been following this for over a decade now. Every year, I just love doing an analysis of the. I used to look at all the mid majors, and then I said to myself, let's just look at the little ones, the littler ones, the lower ones, and they're the ones that spring a lot of these upsets. When you think of St. Peter's a couple of years ago and Fairleigh Dickinson last year, Florida Gulf Coast, about a decade ago, I guess. And so these lower these schools that aren't even close to being power schools. And that's why, and this is my article of this year, lower mid majors that might surprise this week. And that's at the sports column if you want to look at it. And I go through literally 21, 22 conferences. These are schools that may get 1,500 to attend their games. Maybe, at the larger schools more than that, but it's absolutely amazing. So, and so along those lines, Greg and I were talking, I was mentioning too to Daryl, Tom Izzo's comments today that he believes the NCAA needs to take a look at the possibility of removing the tournament champions of mid-major schools from the tournament and just focus on a national championship of the power conferences. You guys know how I think, and I'm going to wait until the end. But your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that's a ridiculous notion. And, you've seen over the years the excitement that those teams add to the tournament when they do pull those upsets. And, I think now, with the transfer portal, NIL, all those things, I always felt like that is going to bring more parity to college basketball. I don't think it will in football because you have so many more people you're dealing with. But I think in basketball, I said that, you take, say, Duke, for example. I'm just using them as an example. And you got 7 5-star players on that team. Well, you got 1 or 2 that are the main guys. You've got these other 4 or 5 that either are on the bench or not playing the role they want to play, not getting the touches they want to get, et cetera, et cetera. Those guys are going to leave and go other places. And you have all these big programs that are going to have that, and those players are going somewhere. And I think these mid-majors are benefiting from that. And I'm not so sure when you watch them on plays, like Daryl said, first of all, they got some great coaches. And then you got teams, a lot of those teams play together, for 4 or 5 years. They keep those kids together in those schools, and they're good because they have that chemistry and they play together, and they're good basketball players to boot. And so I think, taking these people out of the tournament would be a huge mistake. I just don't agree with that at all. And, you look at Izzo's record against some of them. He's lost to quite a few of them, so maybe that's why he wants to get rid of them. I don't know.
Yeah. In fact, one was up in your neck of the woods, over in your neck of the woods, Daryl. George Mason knocked him out and then made a run all the way to the Final Four. Your thoughts?
I coached at Morgan State. We were 23-11 going into the NCAA tournament. They didn't give us a play-in game. I don't like the play-in game. I understand sometimes, and with you give the champion a chance to play in the NCAA tournament, and sometimes, especially in the MEAC tournament, a team that only won 5 games all year can win the championship and go to the championship game, and the regular season champion don't go in, which I think is a disservice to that team too. And we played against Blake Griffin, our first game, and we lost, but we didn't play that play-in game on a Tuesday. They give us a day to prepare and travel. I think that's I think what they do and what Izzo is trying to get to is, let's keep all our people who's been winning. Virginia gets in because on reputation and what they did 1 or 2 years ago, not what they're doing now. And I think the people who are doing this, and they buddy because all the ADs know each other, assistant ADs, and they doing a buddy thing. And some of these teams are really pretty good at mid-major, and better than some of these teams that's in 3rd or 4th place in their leagues. And because it's a tough league, don't mean you don't put a mid-major team in. It goes back to football. Like with Florida State, because the quarterback get hurt and you put another team in to get blasted. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, it was a couple of years ago. Was it Cincinnati that was really good, and you do that to them? You know what I mean? And it's not fair. I'm all about being fair. You know what I mean? I don't think West Virginia University should have went in last year. You know what I mean? It's just that buddy thing. And, with people, and they smooth people, and all the stuff behind the scenes that people don't know about. And and get these teams in that's not ready to play. Let some other teams have some chances. I had a buddy of mine is coaching George Mason now, and he won almost 20-something games his first year and don't get a bid. Just because, you know what I mean? Like, if he was an established guy, he would be getting in, and that's not fair. You know what I mean?
A lot of it's money too. Money talks. A lot of it's money, and like Daryl said, you look in some of these conferences where the regular season champion don't get in, and they play their tournament, they get upset in the conference tournament, so that team gets to go. Well, that just they automatically eliminate the rest of them. And the one I think about is Oakland getting in. They won the conference tournament. Youngstown State is about as good a team as you'll see, and there's a lot of those teams, those big name teams that are in the tournament that I think, Youngstown State's probably better than they are. And if they would take, an objective look at it and watch these teams play and see who they played, watch them play, don't just go by the name of the school or whatever. You'd see a lot more of those mid-major teams getting in now because they're good basketball teams, not because of their name or anything like that, or winning the championship.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with both of you. And again, there's an evidentiary base. I mean, a number of you know that watching that I'm not only a WVU grad, but also Iowa State. And I remember it was some time ago, about 20 years ago, but Iowa State, this was in the tournament, a huge favorite over Hampton Institute, the MEAC champion. Hampton beat them. And when it came to the money time, Hampton won that game, beat Iowa State, and that was a real shocker. But Indiana State not getting in this year with the net ranking they had. I saw them play. They, and also, James Madison got in. They also, by the way, Michigan State played Indiana State at East Lansing, and they had their hands full. Yeah. And arguably, Michigan State should have lost to James Madison. There was a play at the end of regulation that was questionable. Michigan State beat them in overtime. And so the thing that is bothering me more and more is this money driving the system rather than logic and what's best for the game. And that's what's really fair. Patino now is saying, Izzo said it too, the conference commissioner said it yesterday, we need to have more coaches on the selection committee, which is exactly what Daryl's talking about. Buddies, wink, wink.
Yeah.
Buddies, wink, wink. That's what it is.
Yep.
Well, they need to get the analytics out of it. Sometimes you got to go watch these kids play. You know what I mean?
That's right.
You got to go watch these kids play. I mean, like even back 30, 40 years ago when I was at West Virginia, we tore through the league. We lost one regular season game. Going into the A10 playoffs, we 20-something and 2 or 3. And we lose in the tournament. And we get a 8th or 9th seed. And our first game is Tennessee. You know what I mean? Like, come on. You know what I mean? Like, come on. I mean, no, I don't care who we play against, but if you go back and look at it, we're one of the best teams in the country all year.
No question.
Got as high as 11 because they didn't want to keep elevating. We had to go on a win streak for them to recognize us. And I don't think a lot of people understand now what we had to go through then for them to have this stuff they have now at West Virginia. Because we beat everybody. We beat Pitt at Pitt. We beat Maryland at Maryland. Yeah, we beat UAB. We beat Charlotte. That was a really good team. And we started off a little rough, but we made up for it. You know what I mean? Like you got to win 22 games in a row to get an 8th or 9th seed. That means you're a pretty good team. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care what league you playing in. That means you're a pretty good team. And then, then we got Tennessee, and then we lost to Duke, and that was a dogfight. It wasn't like they were.
No, I remember that.
Calls here and there. That's a whole different game. You know what I mean? So, but that's what you want. I don't mind the competition, but don't put us so low like we wasn't one of the better teams in the country.
Yeah.
Well, as I said earlier, I did the analysis, and one of the things I think that, the conclusion I came to is that there are a number of these mid-majors, even the lower mid-majors, that have a chance this week. In fact, Duke is favored Drake is favored in their game. And so, as you said, Greg, this portal and what's going on there are a lot of schools where kids aren't bouncing around. They're sticking around, and they get to play each other. And that's something we've got to look at. Anyway, I'm glad you got your thoughts about that. Any thoughts about the talk about a hot topic? Let's go to another hot topic, the WVU coaching search. All kinds of stuff out there. Daryl and I had an exchange a couple of days ago. Daryl called me up later and he says, "You're hot, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm hot." Because, and I shared it with you, Greg, there was an article by a good friend, Bob Hertzel, Bob, God bless him, an icon by any estimation for years in Cincinnati, and he's been writing it in West Virginia for a very long time. This notion that maybe we don't need a former player to be a coach, and there are good coaches, yeah, that's true, but there's a good part of me that says, hey, give everybody a chance. There are great former players who will make great coaches. Some of them won't, but the same thing for people who never played. Right. Some of them just don't pan out as coaches, and some do. Right. So that's where I'm at, and I really did get upset, and I actually commented to Bob, and I like Bob. He's great, but it should bother me. before we get to you, Daryl, Greg, your thoughts on that? Because Daryl and I talked about it.
Yeah. Why would you eliminate anybody before you ever start the process? I don't understand that. I mean, I would think you want the best fit for the program, whether it's a former player, whether it's a cheerleader, whatever it is, doesn't make any difference. If they're the best fit for the program, go give you the chance for success. Why would you eliminate them before you ever even start the process? And I'll be honest, down here in Morgantown, all I hear walking up and down the streets is they keep chanting "Prue." They were looking at me and saying, "Who are you?" You know, but it's Daryl Prue. I keep hearing, so I'm all about these former players being the coaches. But yeah, I just read an article today where, and I can't remember. I know the one is the coach at James Madison. What's his name? Bingham? Is that his name?
Boynton or something?
Yeah.
I heard his name and then another, and I can't remember the other one's name.
But, he's at Drake.
Yeah. Heard those two. But I don't think, you're going to hear these names right now. They haven't interviewed anybody, I don't think. Maybe they've talked to people behind the scenes. I don't know. But I just don't understand why you would even think about eliminating anybody before the process ever starts, because we obviously want the best person for the job. And, I think you got to interview people, talk to people, get their philosophies, see if it's what you're looking for. You've got people, Daryl, for example, who is a former player, but also has a great deal of coaching experience at a high level. And there's no reason at all that you wouldn't at least talk to Daryl and say, "Hey, tell me what your ideas are." And I don't understand eliminating anybody prior to the process even starting. I think that's absurd.
Boy, this is we're throwing a real softball at you, Daryl. Now just get up to the plate and hit that baby out.
Yeah, it bothered me a little bit too, Frank, because I just sent my resume. I just told Frank it was a week before that article comes out. I sent my resume to the AD and I sent it to the president. So I must have created a little. I must have lit the fire a little bit.
Must have. That's all right.
I didn't think I'll get hired, but I want to at least be a shot at the assistant job. But hey, I'll pick the head job. And I have so many ideas, and I have so many, it said it wouldn't work, but I think the alumni will help me more than anything else. I think I get that kind of backing from alumni from all over the place.
Right.
Gary Ford's son put something on Facebook, and it's like you said it when you went back and forth, Frank, in text. Why not Anthony Grant, African American who's done well, at Dayton. We talking about, no offense to the white coaches. What about some of these black coaches that's done well? And give them a chance. I don't, I'm not saying one is better than the other, but their names never come up.
No.
You know what I mean? My name will never come up. Darius Nichols will never come up. Eric Martin did a great job. He coach of the year in the MEAC this past year. Why not give him a shot? You know what I mean?
He's awfully good.
Yeah, he was really good, And why but then you, like you said, you have an alumni like me and Darius Nichols, and we're sitting out here. We have a lot of information. I have my hands on players and always will. And one of my players is second team All-American this year, Hunter Dickinson. Another one coming. A couple of years ago, I had Luca Garza. He was the first team All-American. So we have a lot of players that we're missing out on just because we're not using our resources. And I know Coach has, Hugs had his people with money people, but I would bring Catlett in as a consultant. I'll bring another veteran coach in, have a crew that can recruit, another guy that can, help me with the X's and O's, and help build a program again, and not just, this team to team every year. You know what I mean? And I think that's what hurt them. It set them up a few years ago when they started doing it. And it set up this downfall, and Josh couldn't get up out of it. He's like an ocean and just kept trying to swim to the top, and the board just kept getting deeper on him. But it was not his fault because it was already planted, years ago with the portal.
Well, I agree with everything you guys said. And I would say, and Darren and I talked about this, unless a decision really has already been made, a general person's agreement. You got the tournament. It's similar to the bowls. And I've been in situations where at a school where an announcement was made, not an announcement, but word got out that a school had hired another coach, and that coach was coaching in a bowl game, and his players heard about it.
Yep.
Of course, everybody has phones, and so they were sharing that. So it may well be that one of the coaches that has a team in the big dance. We already have a general person's agreement, and it's a done deal. And you're right. The names that keep on coming up are the coaches at JMU. Great team. I've seen them on television. And Drake. I've been a Drake fan for a number of years. Great coach. Just does a tremendous job. His son's a great player too. That may be the explanation. But
well, and that may be. But again, I don't know. You do things like that. You look back a few years ago, and we had a fellow show up here by the name of Dan Dockage, and I think that was
that's right.
That was one of these behind the scenes type things because he just came out of nowhere. He was the coach, and you saw what happened with that. And I'm thinking, you need to get people. I mean, you got to look at people in the eye and talk to them, and you got to be able to read people and understand people, and you got to hear their philosophy and their ideas and their plans. And I think if you just, you grab onto a name and that's who your guy is and you stick with it, I mean, that may be your go-to route. I don't know. But to me, I think you limit yourself so much and you possibly eliminate good candidates that could really, really be good coaches. I understand they got ideas of who they want, but at the same time, I don't know why you would shut anybody out and not talk to them.
Yeah. And of course, we don't know that's the case.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, if I had to predict, I'll predict that it'll be a mid-major coach with success that is in the tournament, and that it's a repeat of the Neil Brown hire, which makes sense, I think, for a school like West Virginia. May not make as much sense for a school like Michigan, for example, that's searching. But we'll just see what happens. We'll know soon. But guys, you well know we talk about then and now, and we've been talking about the now. But what we want to do today is to go back to the era that. Let me put this one up first. Put the wrong one up. Going back to an era that Darrell was affiliated with, and talk about the Catlett era, because you guys know as well as I do, maybe better, that that era has been forgotten perhaps more quickly than you would expect, and perhaps more quickly than what has happened at other schools. And when you look at the numbers, you wonder why there isn't more chatter about Gale Catlett and what he did, because he was here for so long. Those are the top 5 winners. We showed this last week shortly, the top 5 winners. Gale is clearly on top, coached significantly longer than any of the other uber successful coaches. More games played. You can see that even as long as Huggins was here, Bob Huggins was here ahead of him in terms of games played. And then, as I mentioned last week, when you look at percentage wins, it's about the same as Huggins, about the same as John Beeline, 2 coaches that clearly had success here. Not as high as Fred Schaus and George King years ago when, for the most part, we were playing in the Southern Conference. But still, it's pretty significant. And so that's one of the things that we wanted to do tonight was to, I'll say it, pay homage to a great coach who had a great career here. And Darrell, let me turn to you. Your thoughts.
It's what it is Huggins don't like Coach Catlett, so he blacked out all that era, and you could tell. I mean, like even before I went into the Hall of Fame, I was getting passed. They were going backwards. People's numbers weren't as good. Then they skipped, then it was going back and forth. Just like I think next year should be Chris Brooks. They did Dale Blaney. They did Lester Rowe. And they seemed like they forgot about everybody else. And at one point, when I left, I was top 10, 15 in scoring, top 10 rebounds, steal 5, top 5, still top 5. And, and me and Larry Harrison had a conversation about it. He said he had a conversation with Hugs. He's like, why Prue not in? You know what I mean? Like he
Yeah.
should be in. You know what I mean? So and Hugs was putting a lot of his buddies in, and that's the kind of influence he had. And it's like that's a selfish behavior. People who deserve it should go in. Period. I don't care what sport. Period. And Catlett, he had done a great job. Before I got there, some of my teammates wasn't the high level guys. You know what I mean? And we played 5 or 6, 7 people my last year, and as it went on, more players starting to come. You remember the Sheldon Jones and all those guys came in after me and Chris Brooks. I was the first All-American, and Chris Brooks was the second one that came to West Virginia. So we made it okay for people to come from New York and DC to come and help, build a program. And that's what Coach Catlett did. He built the program. Beeline sustained it. Bob Huggins took it to, a couple, him and Beeline took it to a different level here and there. And that's what they did. They took it to a different level. You know what I mean? They didn't build it. It was already built before they got here. Right. You know what I mean? And they just took it to a different level because of the, resources are different. And then you got the practice facility. And then, people, see it more on TV, like y'all don't know this, but like when I first started, there was no TV shows in this Washington, D.C. area showing West Virginia basketball until I came. Then it was Comcast and Home Team Sports first and Comcast. Then we got to see, people got to see us play. Then, ESPN, then they made it bigger. But then, it's Catlett has done a lot for the school that's underrated.
That's right. And, I've got this visual up here. And, I had left WVU by the time Gale came after my time at WVU. So I had to follow West Virginia Mountaineers by distance. And, and I was at Michigan State, the first year I was there, Magic Johnson and the Spartans win the national championship. But I was watching Mountaineers very closely. And a number of these games on this list, and we have really courtesy goes to Cam Huffman. This article was which is a good thing. Cam just published this a couple weeks ago on memories under the Catlett era. So my hat's off to him. Our hats off to him. But those games, I remember that Syracuse game in 2001. The game I remember too is that Tennessee game, that '89 tournament, that first round tournament. And if I recall, Daryl, you had come off an A10 tournament loss to Penn State.
Yep.
And then played Tennessee, and you and Herb Brooks carried that. Tennessee was tough that year. And, of course, that Cincinnati game I remember, I'm sure you attended some of these games, Greg. The UNLV game sticks out probably as much, if not more, than any of those. But those are not all of the great games that Cam talks about in his article. It's just 6 or 7 of them.
I remember the UNLV game. I was a junior in college at Glenville, and we came up and we slept on the sidewalk in front of the Coliseum to get in. Because back then, you didn't have like it is now with the students. You just rushed in, so we just get in with the students and go in and watch that game. And it's funny because several years later, after I started coaching, we were down in Charlotte at a coach's clinic, and Jerry Tarkanian was there. And I sat in a booth with him and Jim Valvano and had a few beers. And we talked about that game that night. And I'll never forget Jerry Tarkanian saying it was probably the best atmosphere that he ever played. He said, man, that place was rocking. He said, I remember that well, So I apologize, we didn't treat you very well at West Virginia, but you're welcome back. That's what I told him.
Well, you cue me up here because I've got a clip of that game. And when you watch it, we'll talk. We have to talk over it when we watch it. But it's that style of Daryl. It's that style that you expect WVU to play, and you guys played. That there it is. This
like
is
CB in there. Got to watch.
Yeah, there you go. The CBS feed. But and Greg Jones was on fire. I think that may have been Tim Kearney that did that. But you just see Greg Jones just one shot after another. It's amazing when you see that. I mean, what a great basketball team, and what a great game, you know. And in those days, not many games were on national TV. But here we go, boom, and boom, and boom.
He was such a talent, you know. Too bad he couldn't get himself
Unbelievable.
together.
And then Tim Kearney gets in on the act.
Yeah,
But yeah, that is
that's how we were taught to play at home. That's how we were taught to play at WVU at the Coliseum.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
when I go back to I went back to a game this year, and I got the tickets, and I usually sit behind the bench or somewhere else. They had me behind the students. There's only that many students,
Yeah.
free tickets. When I was there, the tickets went from the floor all the way to the top. Now they just have one small section, so you lose that atmosphere by trying to make all that money that a little bit of money that should be already going into the program.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like it's you take the students out of it, and it's
I'll
like
mention something else. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Daryl. Another thing about Coach Catlett that always stood out to me was, West Virginia, obviously, the population, we don't have the number of big time players that a lot of other places do, but the ones we had, he got them. And
that's right.
Years, if you watch, and we're familiar with it down where I live in Southern West Virginia, in Fayette County. He had 3 guys from Fayette County, play up there: Stevie Berger, Tracy Shelton, and PG Green. All 3 really, really, really good players, and he got the good players in the state. He got them, and that made it to me a lot cooler too, because we saw people we know.
Yeah.
That will play
that's
the games,
right, and that's one of the reasons. That's one of the many reasons I like Coach Brown at football. His predecessor said it couldn't be done, and he's doing it. Yep. But you know what? We looked at Greg. I'll tell you, there's another guy that was pretty damn smooth. This guy right here.
There we go.
I'll tell you, you had balance, man.
Hey, I have said that it was the sweetest jump shot you ever did see.
Well, we're going to see it.
Yes,
here
sir.
It is.
Oh yeah,
and tremendous play underneath.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, good player inside, man.
Tremendous play underneath.
He was, rocking them short shorts too, man.
You were a baller, I'll tell you.
Yeah,
he was a baller.
Great stuff.
I remember. I got on Twitter when I first started getting on Twitter about 10 years ago. And
here's the ceremony when you were inducted.
Yeah. And someone said I wasn't big enough to play in the Big 12. I was like, "Are you serious?" I got recruited. I got recruited by Georgetown, who came off a national championship with Pat Ewing. So I wasn't big enough to play in the Big 12. Like, y'all tripping.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. But Catlett was one of those guys, X's and O's that I still use today. Figuring stuff out. He was magnificent with that. I've learned how to watch tape because of him. Learned how to coach. I played against Herbie Brooks' son a couple of years ago when I was coaching in high school, and he was running that defense. I was like, oh my God. So I had to figure out how to beat it. You know what I mean? But it's just, like even I remember when Coach Catlett retired, I came to his retirement party, and Coach John Chaney said a lot of wonderful things about him. Chaney could be a little curt, and he showed a lot of respect for Coach Catlett's coaching ability. And I think, when Coach was coaching, nobody never talked about he was a bad coach. He didn't know how to coach. That's one thing he knew how to do was coach. Sometimes, it's hard getting players. It's different. You know what I mean? I'm going to say that now. It's different getting players in the 80s and than it was in the 90s. Now it's in the 2000s. It's different to get different players. And, they started to come, it was me, Chris Brooks, Tyrone Shaw. I'm probably the only Hall of Famer in West Virginia history that had 2 starting guards from West Virginia. I had Herbie Brooks and Steve Berger. Right. You know what I mean? And they were really good players. Yeah. You know what I mean? We almost had Bimbo Coles. It was we was in on a lot of players. We was on Dwayne Coswell, a 7-footer that went to Temple. it's we were very close on a lot of players.
Yeah.
That's not coach's fault. And when you do get them, he coaches them up. He coaches the team up. And I think that's one of the most underrated. He was like Beeline. Beeline coaches his, he had better development, but he coached his team up. And I think that was lacking in the last couple of staffs here in Morgantown.
Yeah, I think you know this obviously better than I ever will, Greg, as a coach, is that it would seem that there are certain tasks of any profession that are fundamental to success and also get your engines running. And it would seem to me that one would be to not only coach up guys, but to be able to go out and get the guys you want to really work at it, and to try to have them as long as you can. We've talked about this endlessly. The most difficult thing maybe about the portal is you don't develop any long-term connections. We used to refer to one and done as something that Kentucky did, but now with the portal, it's we're seeing it at West Virginia again. Those guys were here for a year and they're gone.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, there is no way I could coach in college. I mean, I just couldn't do it, and I never did, and so I don't really know about it. But my son does, and I see the things that go on with them as far as people leaving and all that. And I just don't know if I could do it. I think you just have to have a certain mindset, and you got to have an approach to it that I just don't understand and wouldn't know what to do. But yeah, and that's why I say about these mid-majors today, when you have a team together, when I coached high school, I had my last 2 or 3 years, had great success, made state tournaments, had really good 120 games every year. But I had a group of kids that, they started off in middle school together. They came to the high school. They played all the time. They wanted to be in the gym all the time. And I had them. And by that senior year, we were a heck of a basketball team, because they played together so much. They stayed together. They hung out together. We went to camps together. All those things matter. And I don't know how today, it would be so hard to me to coach these guys where you got new people every year. And you can't count on the next year who you're going to have, and I just don't know how they do it. And going back to Coach Catlett, one more thing Daryl said about him drawing things up. That's one of the things I remember about him too. Is I know this is simple, but inbounds plays. Last 8-10 years, ever how long it's been, I watch these inbounds plays, and I'm like, we can't even get the ball inbounds. We never get a good look off an inbounds play. When Coach Catlett was there, I mean, you'd just be sitting there watching, boom, all of a sudden somebody shooting a layup off an inbounds play. He had great inbound stuff that he ran. And you can tell by the video clips we watched there. I mean, even though that was a long time ago, look at the difference in our offensive set and what we do now, as far as movement, spacing, and all those type of things. They don't do any of that now. It looks horrible, and it has looked horrible for the last 10 years. But he did great things, with those offensive sets and the inbounds plays and those type of things. He was really good at that. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and the funny thing,
Daryl was there and lived it, so he knows.
Yeah. So I was coaching in Georgetown, and so I used to come back every summer or whatever, come talk to him. And one day, me and him was talking. He got to talking. I didn't get a chance to get a word in. And when I left, God bless her soul, Miss Catlett thanked me. I was like, why? She's like, that's the first time he talked about basketball since his release at West Virginia.
Yeah.
So fast forward to the Kansas game. Now that's all we talk about. You know what I mean? Like every week we're talking.
Yeah.
And he like he got the itch and burn again. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Then he tells me, he said, yeah, Prue. I see you've been listening to me when you were playing. I said, yeah, I listen, Coach. I listen a little bit. And it's just, it's good to talk to someone, there's mentorship. So it's like, he about coaching. Like a lot of people don't get taught how to coach. And, he reminded me, John Thompson III reminded me a lot of Catlett, with his offensive system. Yeah, it was a Princeton, but Catlett has some of the same principles by spreading the floor, the UCLA cut, to the backdoor cut. You know what I mean? So we had a lot of principles. We didn't do it all the time, but it was a lot of his principles were there, and defensively we got after people. We,
Yeah.
I remember my junior year, we didn't have a good season, and we got out of the press a little bit. And he asked me about the press. I was like, you need to move Chris back and me back at the forwards. I used to get a lot of my steals and half court, taking it out of guys' hands or reading the pass. And he will empower me a lot, during games. Do you think we should sub yet? Talk, and those conversations, I think, helped me groom me later on as a player and as a coach.
Yeah. Boy, I'm not surprised to hear that. And you know this, Greg. That's you're talking about Gale Catlett, but what you just described, Daryl, is what great coaches do. And it's not just in basketball; it's football. You hear the same thing over and over and over again. But I want to put this up before we talk about the tournament that's going on now. Is you got to have great players to run those plays. And here's just I didn't do complete justice, Daryl, to you with what I have here, but there's enough there, I think, for everyone watching either live or in archive to know that you were one hell of a player. And the thing about it that I remember watching you play and getting to know you is that you didn't do one thing. You did multiple things. You did multiple things well, and you were a team guy. And that the thing that sticks out to me really, when you look at that third line there, the WVU went 89-38 when Prue was on the team. Well, that winning percentage is higher than Gale Catlett's overall percentage. He was at about 61, I think. You were honored with Atlantic 10 all conference first and second team, and then obviously into the Hall of Fame. But to me, to be able to be with a great coach, for a great coach to have great players, and then I always say you can win. It's not that you can't win. You should win, and you won, and your teams won.
Yeah, I mean, winning is a habit. You have to learn how to win. I was fortunate enough to come from a high school program that won. Come here, we won, and then you start figuring out ways how to win. It's it's not easy to learn how to win. These teams the last couple of years didn't know how to win.
That's right.
You get to this portal, do you get guys that know how to win? And a lot of these guys coming from the portal, they're just, the numbers look good, and we're not, you're not studying these guys and stuff like that. Then you're not building programs, and there's no way, I brought the 7-footer to campus. You know what I mean? There's no way you offer them later, but you treat them better. You know what I mean? It's like this kid is rolling right now. He's leaving tomorrow to go to Germany, playing the under 18 thing there. You know what I mean?
You've shown me film of him, and Greg, this guy's good.
He's really
you going to send me some tape so I can watch him. I'd like to check him out.
I still got your number. Text me your number again. I got your number.
Okay.
Yeah, his name is Erg Reeby. I mean, he's still 17. That's the thing. He won't turn 18 until June. Wow. And great kid, great family. I met the sister, the mother, and the father. They come over to watch his games. You know what I mean? So, and he's he as the season went on, he started playing better. But you say you got to have good players, but with that, you got to treat them right. You know what I mean? I don't know what happened a couple of years ago with the kid that transferred to Baylor. You know what I mean? You just can't. Some of these coaches and all of them not saints. Big John Thompson did the same thing to a lot of players there. And you alienate these guys. Some guys don't want to play for people like that. And, you can't keep guys if you keep, being bullish and about your ways. Sometimes, a lot of these coaches, the Patinos of the world, the Izzos of the world, with the entitlement they have as coaches.
I know.
I'm gonna get somebody else and I don't have to worry about you. No, sometimes you got to, keep what you have. Yeah. And hopefully with this portal, you know what I mean? You can keep and build and build and build and not worry about the major programs or, NCAA has to look at it different and do it differently. No, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is what it is. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. I was thinking about as you're talking that not too far from campus is Duquesne. Hadn't heard a lot about Duquesne over the years, but they've got a great coach. They're in the tournament, and they've got a premier player up there. These mid majors, every single one has one player that sticks out. I've been watching a lot of St. Peter's, and they have a kid from Arkansas ended up in Jersey City and plays for St. Peter's, and he's something. And they're playing against Tennessee. Folks who are watching and will watch probably wonder, hey, this is a football network, and you're talking about basketball. We started with the now and talked about the coaching situation with a number of things, and then we went back in time. We're going to go back into the now, and so what I have here, got to get your thoughts about the tournament that is coming up, and let me see if I can position us over here so we can see everybody.
Hey, Frank, I was going to say, basketball has locker rooms too, so
that's right.
The locker room is
football
and basketball.
That's right. That's right. I'm not going to be able to get all of us here, and I apologize for that. But that's I've got these brackets organized by location. So we've got the East. I've got 4 of them. Let's go down the list there. What games and teams stick out for you guys? They're coming up tomorrow, and they're coming up Friday. What do you think? What games and teams stick out? And then after that, which one do you think will make it to the Final Four?
Well, I'll jump in there first. Of course, UConn, if you watch them play this year, they're the best team I saw on TV all year. I don't have them in my bracket. I don't have them coming out of the East in the Final Four, but I think UConn is a really good team to pay attention to. I think Iowa State, of course, we all saw what they did in the Big 12 tournament, but I was looking at some stats the other day. I had Dwayne Osborne from University of Charleston on my show the other day. They made the national tournament and got beat in the regional finals. And, we were talking about his team and some of the stuff that he'd accomplished over the last few years. One of the statistics that stuck out to me was the offensive efficiency, the offensive percentage, and also the stop percentage on defense. And he led the country in both categories, and that's why his team was so good. Iowa State has that defensive percentage. They're first or second in the country in points allowed. They play defense, and I think Iowa State. In fact, I have Iowa State coming out and going to the Final Four. But I think obviously that's your 1 and 2 seeds in there. I have some of these mid majors that I like that I think may win some games, but not in the East. I don't have any.
Yeah. Darryl?
I definitely like UConn. That UConn coming out the East. That second bracket, the lower bracket is not the toughest bracket. It looks like it's even.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, I think, BYU, could be tough coming out. I think the Washington Drake game is a tricky game. The team won 28 games. I'm scared about them. And just like, but I like Iowa State. You know what I mean? So I'll go along with Greg with the. If it's a Drake and Iowa State game, woo!
Oh my God,
that's gonna be probably one of the better games in all NCAA playoffs.
Yeah, you're right, and I think that's why they have them there. Yeah. Let me tell you too. There's as I look at that, I like you. You can't not like UConn. He's a double negative. They are so good, well coached, really good, very intense coach. Obviously, Hurley family. But as I go through there, I'm a little bit surprised that Florida Atlantic has not been able to sustain it. They didn't win the American. I thought they would, and they didn't. I look at Morehead State. They got a guy by the name of Riley Minix, who's a lot like you, Darryl. He does a lot of things. He scores, he rebounds. He's an assist man. Nobody hears about Morehead State and Eastern Kentucky. Illinois is excellent. They won the Big Ten tournament. Yeah, I think they were the best team, although people would argue, that's Purdue. But you take that big guy out of Purdue and you wonder, okay, and they've been really the tournament's been tough for them. And then you got Drake. I think Drake's going to get Washington State, and I think Morehead State's going to give Illinois a tough time because you can't help overlook a team like Morehead from the Ohio Valley Conference. And I'll tell you, South Dakota State, over the years. They had a guy named Mike Dom for a number of years at center. He was unbelievable. Big guy. He's gone, big and lumbering. But South Dakota State has a reasonable team. They're just getting their sea legs. Iowa State can't look by them, but you know,
I
you
think
can't.
one more, Frank, I like in there too is UAB. I think a lot of people overlook
Yeah.
them. Although that's a pretty good basketball team. I watched them a
You
couple
bet.
times, and you know, I think that might be somebody to watch. That might be one of those 5-12s upsets. That's usually where
Yeah. This is why I can't, on the face of it, Isso's proposal.
I give you another one. That Auburn and Yale game ain't no. It's not a. That's not an easy victory for Auburn.
You know, that I watched that Ivy League tournament. You know, they only go with 4 teams, top 4 teams, and Brown made it. They were 4th and had a losing record on year, and Yale beat them in the last second. That Brown would have been in the tournament other than Yale if Yale hadn't beat them. But Princeton, I thought Princeton was going to win. Princeton and Yale, both teams, and the Yale teams disciplined, a lot of backdoor stuff. I agree with you. Here's the West. Yep. So here we got North Carolina, we got Baylor, we got Dayton, we got St. Mary's, my Michigan State there. What do you guys think? Start with you, Daryl, then we'll go to Greg.
Well, I'm looking at the Michigan State Mississippi State game. That's going to be a toss-up, I think. But that Grand Canyon and St. Mary's. That Grand Canyon. Nobody knows nothing about Grand Canyon. They almost have 30 wins for the season.
Yeah. Another Drew as a coach.
Yeah. Then I'm looking at that New Mexico and Clemson game.
Boy, New Mexico's good.
And what else? So I'm getting Arizona out of this. Arizona.
Yeah, I am too.
I'm gonna say this: Arizona or Dayton.
Dayton is, you know, people who don't know Dayton, don't follow Dayton, don't realize how basketball crazy the folks in that area are. That stadium, that facility is always filled. They just do a great job. They love their Flyers.
Yeah.
And I like North Carolina, but I also like Alabama.
Yeah.
Like Alabama. So
they just haven't been consistent for one reason or another, and I love their coach. But at any rate, Greg, your thoughts?
Well, obviously, you got to like North Carolina. I mean, they're a very good basketball team. Watched them. I thought this bracket, this side was the weaker bracket. I think St. Mary's is a really good team, but the one team that I look at here is New Mexico over Clemson. I think that's a good bet, and because that New Mexico team is very, very, very good.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, they're really, really good. Dayton's good too. You know, one team in here that I know is a good team. I've watched them, and I watch them every year, and I pick them in my bracket every year, and I have them going to the Final Four every year, and they always get beat, and that's Arizona in the second round. And so that's going to be one of my. I know you mentioned in our pre-talks about this who we thought we might see get upset, get knocked out. Arizona is going to be on my list because every year I pick them to go out, and they never do.
Yeah.
But I really like New Mexico. I think that's going to be an interesting game to watch.
Well, always interesting when a WVU player transfers. We watch Baylor and other teams. Bell's not starting anymore at center, but he comes in, and boy, he's a space eater, and he's playing in the middle for Mississippi State. Yeah. So that'll be interesting. And I'll tell you what's interesting about this, because I follow the mid-majors, St. Mary's is the highest ranked team on the net, number 15 of all 362 major playing teams. St. Mary's is number 15. Nobody's near them from a mid-major perspective. And I think Grand Canyon's going to knock them off. Grand Canyon is the best team nobody's heard of.
Yeah.
Plays in the WAC.
Surprised.
Yeah. And, you know, if I gave you guys a test and said, name 4 teams in the Western Athletic Conference, as much as knowledgeable as you two are, you wouldn't be able to do it. I mean, it's just that is a league that used to be, Texas Christian used to be in the WAC. Arizona State used to be in the WAC. But now and New Mexico State left. They're now in Conference USA. So Grand Canyon now is the heir apparent to the crown of the WAC. They don't play a really strong schedule, but watch for Grand Canyon. Great great coach team, and let's keep on going. And we're going to do the South now, and we'll continue with you, Greg. What do you think about the South? You got Houston there, and
Yeah, and I look at Houston. Houston, they're really good, so athletic, long, fast, quick. But they're a lot like Arizona. They always seem to disappoint. So I don't have them coming out of this out of the South. Again, I think this side is a little more tougher than the East West.
Yeah,
I like Kentucky. Kentucky has really started playing good basketball here in the last couple of weeks of the season.
Finally,
they got some people healthy, and really started playing really, really well. So I kind of like Kentucky coming out of the South. The mid majors there, I for whatever reason, I'm pulling for James Madison. I would love to see them, but that Wisconsin team's pretty good. So I don't know if they can get Wisconsin or not. But I think I don't think Vermont's going to beat Duke, but I don't think Duke's going to go real far in this. I've got them going out fairly early as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's some teams here. Marquette, I think, is really good. Nebraska's a decent team. I mean, there's some good teams over there, and you would think, Houston. If you look at all of it from afar, Houston and Kentucky obviously would be the teams that you would think would ultimately get out there. But I don't see that. I think Kentucky is. I don't think Houston will. And I don't know what it is about Houston. Again, they're a lot like Arizona. They can be so good, but then all of a sudden just fall apart, And
That's
you saw what Iowa State did to them. So, they're vulnerable. And, Iowa State absolutely destroyed them. And, getting beat is one thing, but when you get crabbed like that, they crushed them. When that happens, you got to question a little bit that there is not some faults in that team that Iowa State figured out. So I see them going out, but I do like Kentucky coming out of the South.
Yeah, that was the biggest loss for a number one team since Houston beat UCLA in 1968. That's amazing. The same team being on the either end of that. I'll tell you though, James Madison is a damn good team.
Yes, they are.
They played Marshall. Wisconsin, you just never know which Wisconsin's going to show up.
Right.
Is that the team knock off? Can they knock off Purdue? Sure. Can they lose to Northwestern? Yeah. So that's a team. And the team I'm looking at, I'll tell you what, they're I want to get this name right. I should know it because I watch them. Nobody knows about Oakland. That's Oakland, Michigan, Oakland County, not Oakland, California.
Yep.
And I'm going to get his name right here. There's a guy named Trey Townsend who plays for Oakland, who leads them in scoring, rebounding, and assist. He's a do everything guy. You can't sleep on Oakland. You simply can't sleep on Oakland. And I love Vermont. They play in the America East. Problem is, it's just not very competitive. They're great at what they do, but I don't think they can take out Duke. But Kentucky's got to watch out for Oakland. And Daryl, your thoughts?
Yeah, Houston, if they get their big fella back, I think they'll be fine until they. That James Madison Wisconsin game is going to be an interesting one. I think the Nebraska and Texas A&M is going to be a kind of a weak game. Duke's going to beat Vermont.
Yeah.
My wild card is NC State.
Yeah,
they're good.
If that big fella get to rolling like he did against North Carolina,
he's something he's something else.
If he gets to rolling like he did against North Carolina, the Texas Tech and whoever plays next is going to have a problem.
Well, they took out the two favorites. They took out Duke and then North Carolina.
And they peaking at the right time.
I mean,
they peaking at the right time, and they got shooters too. So if Big Boy get the rolling, they might make a push, and I don't see nobody beating them that has size. You know what I mean? Kentucky, maybe. I don't think Kentucky's that good. You know what I mean? Like they're good, but I don't think they're not beatable. Florida. I'm gonna go. So I'm gonna go Duke I hate to say it, Duke, and I'm gonna say Duke and NC State.
Wow.
I'm gonna jump out there.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, I think this is
The only thing I haven't seen Marquette, and I know
Yeah.
they're pretty good too.
Yep, Marquette is good.
they're good too, but again, I've watched them a couple times, and you say, is that the same team I just watched a week or so ago? And we
Yeah.
know that's part of basketball, but I think you're right on Houston. It's tough to go against them. First of all, I don't think Longwood can do anything there. Although they really value athletics at Longwood, and they've come a long way. And you got to give, my God, you got to give Nebraska credit. When was the last time we even used that name in basketball? It's been a long time in football too, but
Yep.
they've got a great coach there, and he's done a great job, and he's bringing in players. Lincoln is not an easy place by any means to recruit, so you got to give him credit. But I'm looking at Houston, and I think you're right. It may be a surprise team, and we can't count out Texas Tech. Every time you try to count them out,
I think Houston has a fairly easy, fairly easy bracket to advance with. I just think Kentucky is better, and we'll get them out there in the Final Four, I guess.
yeah.
Duke has Houston before that, so Duke will have in the Sweet 16. They will have Houston before the Final Four.
Yeah, I know, but I still think he'll beat Duke.
Yeah, if those guards come to play, you're right.
I mean, it could. I mean, I'm not saying it's not possible. Anything can happen, but if they play.
Wow. Okay, guys, look at this. Timothy, you are out on the limb, buddy.
James
Madison to win it all. When George Mason went in that run a couple years ago, they could have easily won it all too. So it's not as though the mid-majors haven't made it to the Final Four. St. Peter's went on that incredible run a couple years ago. So here's the last one, the Midwest. Talk about St. Peter's at their bottom there. Craig, why don't we start with you?
All right. I do have a few upsets in this one. I really like McNeese over Gonzaga. I think McNeese is really a good team. I think the coach is Will Wade. I think is his name. It was LSU. Got in some trouble there and left. This is the first year, and they won 30 games. They're good, and I not overly impressed with Gonzaga. Of course, they are Gonzaga, so they're pretty good as well. But I like McNeese there. I also like Sanford over Kansas. Sanford's a pretty good basketball team, but Kansas has so many injuries right now. Their two best players are out, and I see a possible upset there with Sanford upsetting Kansas. I'm not, I don't know that I would bet a whole lot of money on it, but I sure do like them. But Purdue again, Purdue is again like Arizona. It's one of those teams that they show up one night are great, and then next time you watch them, they're just so. You would think, looking at their roster, they would be by far and away the best team in the country. But there's some weaknesses there as well. So I don't think Purdue will get beat early, but I do think they're going to lose. I don't think they're going to advance out of the Midwest. And I'll be honest, who I really like to advance is Creighton. And they play Akron first game. It should be a pretty good game, but I really like Creighton, and I even actually have Creighton making it to the Final Four. So I think obviously they're going to come out of the Midwest, but I do see a few upsets in this Midwest.
Good, Daryl.
Yeah, I like Purdue until either in the Sweet 16 if they have if a McNeese State is there, they might have a problem with that. But if they don't have that, I think they're fine. The bottom half, so I got Purdue, Kansas. I think Hunter comes back, but the other best player is out.
He's out.
Yeah. So South Carolina and Oregon, Oregon, they out in the Midwest. No, in Pittsburgh actually. Creighton and Akron. I like Creighton. Texas and Colorado State. I'll give Texas that one, but I like Tennessee out of that bottom bracket.
Yeah.
I think I don't think it's as strong as the other couple of brackets we saw. The Tennessee and Purdue maybe depends on if Purdue don't see a McNeese State.
Yeah, a lot of people are going with Tennessee. I like St. Peter's, been following them. And watch a Corey Washington. He's a forward, all do everything. He has a good supporting cast. But I'll tell you, you mentioned Samford. They have a guy in the middle by the name of Acor. I think it's Acor, or Ancor, I think it is, from Australia, who if he's going to have to play really, really well, but he's one of the persons who could dominate a game. And to me, Purdue continues to be an enigma. I've watched them play multiple times. They get hot and then they can't sustain it, and they lose to teams you wouldn't expect them to lose, and they're almost snake bitten. Something happens, and I sense right now that team is plays along, and then all of a sudden, is it happening now to us again? Yeah. And you can sort of see it. But boy, I'll tell you, if they don't do it this year, when are they ever going to do it? And I love McNeese. Gonzaga St. Mary's beat him 2 out of 3 times this year in the West Coast Conference, beat him in the regular season, and then split the regular season, and then beat him in the conference championship game. And it wasn't, they broke a sweat, obviously, but it wasn't like, oh my God, how do we do that? Were we lucky? No, they're a better team than St. Mary's, I think. So, and I think you're right about Creighton. A lot of people, it's interesting because the committee was not very kind to the Big East this year. St. John's didn't get in, Seton Hall didn't get in, Providence didn't get in. Those 3 teams didn't get in. Pitino obviously is pissed that St. John's didn't get in. But Creighton can go on a run if any team can. But anyway, well, that's great, guys. Great thoughts. Any final thoughts tonight before we bid everyone good night?
Just can't wait for it to get started. I love the March Madness.
Yeah, that's for sure. Daryl?
One more salute to Coach Catlett. Like I said, like Beeline was great. Huggins was great, but the foundation was already there. Sometimes people forget, they just build on, which there's nothing wrong with building on to a foundation. But the foundation was already created. And I think, as we get older, some people haven't been around, they don't understand. It's sad that, those pictures on the wall in the Coliseum has been up there a few years up until the Kentucky game. Coach Catlett hasn't seen it. I had to walk him around. I had to walk him around so he could see it, his own picture. Yeah. Not just mine, but his, you know what I mean? And there was no ceremony for it because of the disdain in the programs that, with the older players that play for Catlett, Coach Catlett, that, Hugs don't like him, and you don't have a ceremony for something like that. Like why? Yeah. I don't understand. Every other program in the country will have a program for that unveiling of those pictures, and it's history. You can't forget our history. So it's like Fred Shouts, and we don't forget about Fred Shouts. We don't forget about Bob Huntley and Jerry West. You can't pick what you forget and what you remember. So
don't rewrite it. That's right.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, the thing that brings up too, and I was going to say it earlier, and what you're saying now reminds it, and I'll say it again. I'm a sociologist. That's what I did for a living. And so you look at social relations, you look at social patterns, you look at institutions. One of the challenges that in all fields, but we can see it in athletics because it's more public. We don't know what's happening on the inside of IBM unless you work there, but you see what's going on. And one of the real challenges in college athletics is when a coach has been around for an extended period of time, there often comes a time when the coach is bigger than the program. It becomes person dependent. I hate to say this, and I may not live through the night because Penn State fans will come through my front door, but that happened at Penn State with Paterno. It certainly happened with Woody Hayes at Ohio State, and I can go on, and there are other players. You got to give Saban, you got to give Nick Saban a lot of credit. He wasn't bigger than the Alabama program. He respected it, even though he has a statue out there. And Gale Catlett was there for 24 years, and he was never bigger than the program.
That's right. Yep. Yeah, and I don't think we can say that about all the coaches at West Virginia.
That's right. And the beauty of that is that when you leave, you don't have to engage in, well, I'll just tell you this. And again, I may not live through the night. There may be people coming through the front door. But the fact of the matter is, as a sociologist, I'm telling you, the evidentiary base is always the same. When someone becomes bigger than the program, when they go, it's Humpty Dumpty is falling off the wall, and you've got to pick up the pieces.
Yep.
That's always happens.
Yeah.
You look how long. Look at Michigan and Bo Lift, how long it took for them to get their sea legs. Yeah. And so God bless, Gale Catlett, that didn't happen. The last few years were not as good. In fact, the last season was not good at all. But the program hadn't fallen flat. And that's why you were able to get people like John Beeline in and then Hugs and so on. So,
that's right.
Yeah, I better get off my soapbox here.
Frank, I'm impressed by these players' names and coaches' names you throw out. I can't remember my own family members' names, and you're throwing out all these names. Like center for Sanford and stuff like that. I'm like, man, I don't know where you come up with all this stuff.
I'll tell you what. Well, I'm a nerd. That's right. That's why. No, I love looking at this stuff, and I love looking at history, and I just love doing the analysis. And we're going to all learn a lot of names when we get closer to football season, because we're going to look not just at our roster, but we're going to look at rosters from the teams that the Mountaineers are playing, and that's always a lot of fun. I see there are a couple of comments here, and here we go. Some kudos from our good friend Timothy. Right, thanks, another great show, and a erstwhile Kelly McCourt, great show, guys. Thank you to and others for watching. Always an honor. We'll be back to football mostly next week. For Daryl and for Greg, I'm Frank. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great week. Enjoy the basketball. We'll see you next week, 7 p.m. on Wednesday.
See you.